discretionary consumption for the Indian economy would look like in the coming period is a big question. Hello and welcome to Inventiva. This is Sonia Ghatraj back again with the big news. The Indian economy has been through a rather hard time owing to the COVID-19 crisis, and every discussion on the fundamentals of the economy brings us one step closer to the realization of a tattered growth prospects for the country. The Indian economy has been through several pitfalls, some more recent than the others, like that the twin balance sheet crisis which has now turned into four, or the worst in decades economic growth. However, after every down, we know that there is an up that was coming one way or the other. That was the beauty of an emerging economy. But what if the down that is in front of us is so deep in the lows that coming back up would be a way more convoluted? Well, looks like that in this case. Not because the economic indicators won't improve or the economy won't pick up the pace, but because this pandemic has had a rather permanent behavior shift in the outlook of the people. That is particularly concerning because the inclusion of behavioral economic is more or less absent from the Indian public policy, and there is no better time to discuss this. While the government, authorities and monetary systems are going to be dealing with several macroeconomics and financial policy tools to tackle the problems that the pandemic has thrown at us. Those tools would fail to accommodate for the fact that the behavior shift transcends beyond the reach of these policies' action. Discretionary consumption is going to be one such parameters that would bear the burden of this pandemic due to the behavioral shift for us for a long time. But before we analyze the prospects of the discretionary consumption in the period, take a note of the fact that is not something that has been happening for the first time. An empirical analysis of the consumption pattern after an economic or financial crisis in the past would reflect the tendency of the consumption to stay slumped for a while, even after considerable measures have been taken to improve them. Case in a point, the financial crisis of the United States in and after 2008 or the economic hardship in Russia in the earlier part of the 21st century. Behavior pattern shifts are reflected directly in people's consumption patterns, and for an emerging economy like India, a major chunk of whose gross product comes from a private consumption, that this can become a major problem. Consider the pattern Indian consumers would have concerning discretionary consumption at the moment. For an average middle-class Indian, there have been no cash transfers or direct benefits during any lockdown period. As a result, the consumption and the expenditure had to be borne directly from the savings only. More so because several people lost their livelihood in the informal sector due to the lack of economic mobility during the crisis period. Secondly, the employment rate has been severely high in both phases of the virus, with the numbers still hanging as high as a double-digit rate. The particular loss of the income has been a rather difficult factor for households to bear, for they had to cover all the necessary expenses, even the discretionary ones, through their savings. Not only that, more than 3 crore people have been infected by the virus so far. That's the one on the record, implying that a huge chunk of people have to bear unplanned bulky expenditure for the little savings that they had left. That's not only exploit their savings but also wreaking havoc on the prospects of these people too. By far, we have talked about how the pandemic left people with no choice but to opt for precautionary motives to save. Fiscal benefits like direct transfers and cash aids have significant impact in adding these precautions and immortalizing them to some extent, since some of the additional benefits is seen as an outside bonus for the people and is in turn used as a discretionary consumption purpose, as can be seen from the patterns of the United States, who is now stimulating demand all around the world. Other than direct transfer and cash aids, unemployment benefits and insurance also play a very significant role in ensuring that the employment impacted people do not suffer substantial losses in terms of wealth and turn do not sufficiently after their consumption approach. A study of JP Morgan Chase revealed how unemployment benefits and consumption went hand in hand during the pandemic for the United States, with a direct correlation between the two. This presents a clear picture of the uncertainties and the risk aversion presented to the people in the previous period. Now consider the intertemporal model of the consumption and saving for the consumer, who has a result on the subjective probability of a negative environment and risk aversion in the coming period, would choose to consume less in the present period to have a safely cushion of saving in the present period. Even despite the low interest rates, people are now willing more to save than they are to spend on discretionary consumption. This is further fueled by a likely health expenditure in the future, both with or without viruses. A data comparison of developed economies like the US and the UK and emerging economies like India and China reveals that India have the highest out-of-pocket expenditure on healthcare expenses. This means that the health insurance have the lowest prevalence in India, and as a result, the tendency to save more future medical expenditure burdens up further in the call for the people saving in their current period. A behavior shift in the labor market as revealed by the NOMURA index is also pretty evident in the picture we are trying to paint here. Despite the opening up of the economy and increases in mobility, the labor market have been mentally slow to recover as per data presented by the Center of Monitoring Indian Economy. This means that the economic and the income prospects of the people are also severely grim at this point, which in turn points in the direction of slow economic growth and consumption recovery. The outlook of the people is well presented in the Consumers' Confidence Survey conducted by the Reserve Bank of India, which shows how the consumers have great exceptions of income and consumption patterns in the future. Consumers' confidence is a direct translation of what people's approach towards consumption looks like. For low consumer confidence means less willingness of the people to spend on discretionary patterns. This should indicate what the future for consumption looks like, and we wish we could say any better.